What's up, guys? My name is Elias, and 2026 is upon us. But before we enter the new year, here is my ranking of every movie I've seen in 2025. In last place is War of the Worlds, the one with Ice Cube. What can I say about this movie that hasn't been said about Afghanistan? It's bombed out and depleted. Okay, that's a Dave Chappelle joke. Don't cancel me for that. You can look it up. Now, the filmmakers, along with Amazon, behind this abominable adaptation of H.G. Wells' timeless classic novel just may have put out one of the worst movies ever made, and I don't think anyone's really going to disagree with me there. Now, having Ice Cube as your lead is never a bad thing, but having a COVID dealt production as Ice Cube gets away with reading off emotional exposition like he's being held at gunpoint while everyone else in the movie shows up for a paycheck was never gonna make this thing a worthy successor to previous adaptations. But perhaps the real nail in the coffin for this movie was when Ice Cube's daughter's fiance uses Amazon Air to fly a computer chip to Ice Cube, but gets assistance from this random guy on the street after they bribe him with a $1,000 Amazon gift card to flip over the drone. And look, I don't even want to continue. This movie's just terrible. it's terrible. But the only thing worse than watching this movie was the fact I was convinced to watch it a second time. Shame on me indeed. Next up is 28 Years Later. I'll be quite honest, I have not brought myself to watch this movie again, as the first time I watched it, I fell asleep for like 10 minutes halfway through and had never been so bored during a zombie movie in my life. Because I love zombie movies. That being said, I do understand and appreciate its thematic depth and that it was trying to break the formula in a sense from the first two movies. However, the first two movies were what they were because of the formula and were far scarier and more exciting than 28 Years Later could have ever hoped to be. Why we didn't just immediately follow the events of 28 weeks with 28 months later, at least follow the characters from those movies, I'll never know. Danny Boyle's return to the franchise was highly anticipated, and the movie is absolutely gorgeous throughout. No doubt about it. But when a swinging zombie sausage takes up a good portion of your runtime only for the Power Rangers to start doing backflips and whatnot in the movie's final moments, it just makes me wonder why return at all. So here's hoping the Bone Temple is 1,000% better when it comes out in January, and hoping Nia DaCosta doesn't get her movie butchered again like what happened with the Marvels in the MCU. Next up, unfortunately, is Happy Gilmore 2. Look, when a sequel to one of my favorite Adam Sandler movies was announced, I was ultra hyped. Now, I ask, why did Adam Sandler even bother? For 2 hours, this man had his real life friends and family cameo to make the most unfunny jokes in a movie that starts with one of the main characters from the first one getting offed in the first 10 minutes of the movie, showcasing Happy's newfound lease on life as an alcoholic who tries to sneak a drink from every object he can hide it in. Compelling stuff, right? Dog, I love Adam Sandler, but I've noticed that he doesn't really make sequels to his movies, and that's probably for good reason, though I do like Grown Ups 2 more than the first one. I would still check out anything that Adam Sandler puts out because he literally is in like 10 of my favorite movies of all time. But this was just a huge letdown. There's no other way I could put it. Bringing in the top 20 is Old Guard 2. After 5 years of waiting, we finally got a sequel to the breakout Netflix hit starring Charlize Theron, and man, was it utterly disappointing. Thing is, everything in between is just not as compelling as the story beats we got in the first one. And the movie even ends so abruptly that it almost feels like they didn't know how to end it, but also wanted to tease a third film that is most likely never going to happen after this sequel's reception. Next, I got The Conjuring Last Rites. Let me clear the air by saying that I didn't not like this movie, and I actually think it was a surprisingly heartfelt and solid conclusion to Ed and Lorraine Warren's story. In keeping with being honest, though, it's just not as scary as the first two Conjurings. Even the third one was a lot more unsettling and creepy than Last Rites, especially when Last Rites' horror factor mainly relied on jump scares and Vera Farmiga constantly doing that thing where she slowly looks behind herself because she senses something creepy around. She like does like this thing. like it happened like 20 times. Go back and watch it, and you'll notice it a lot more. The new co-leads here are Mia Tomlinson's Judy Warren and Ben Hardy's Tony, who are presumably going to take over as the main characters of the franchise going forward, if that end tease is anything to go by. And they do a well enough job bringing the emotional journey, providing some stakes to the overall plot. While Last Rites is better than a lot of the, universe adjacent movies in the Conjuring franchise, it's probably my least favorite of the four mainline films, even if the wedding scene had a bunch of cameos in it, including the director who started it all, James Wan himself. Incoming is another disappointing movie of 2025, Captain America: Brave New World. Oof. This one kind of hurt, as the fourth movie in the Captain America quadrilogy, tetralogy, whatever you want to say, is probably one of the most disappointing movies in the MCU as a whole. Out of all 37 movies they have, something like that, one of the worst ones. Now, I'm not a hater of Sam Wilson as Captain America, and I even love that Red Hulk finally made his debut in the MCU. But the fact that Sam's first movie as Cap was a pseudo-sequel to 2008's Incredible Hulk instead of a true blue Cap story may be the oddest decision Feige and company has made so far, and Thor: Love and Thunder is a movie that actually exists. I can admit some of the action was cool, albeit unbelievable when the main dude is fighting superhuman behemoths without any super strength or speed and is taking hits that would knock out and probably kill a normal man. But even Tim Blake Nelson's leader was supposed to be more comic accurate, but an excessive amount of reshoots and rewrites completely eradicated everything they had going for this movie before all that happened, even giving us one of the worst mid-credits teases in the MCU. One of the worst. Making Isaiah Bradley more of a main player could have worked wonders, as he had more charisma and screen presence than anyone else in this movie, but of course, the one who had the character arc was Harrison freaking Ford. Instead of Anthony Mackie, the main guy who was relegated to still questioning why Steve gave him the shield in Endgame, even though we had just explored and resolved that whole conflict in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's just frustrating, man. Super frustrating. Next up is The Age of Disclosure. And there's a funny story about this one. So my brother had called me one night and told my fiance and I to watch Age of Disclosure on Amazon Prime because it was apparently awesome. It said I had to rent it for $20 though, but my brother generally has good taste in movies, so I thought, why not? I'm a sucker for a good documentary after all. As soon as I rent it, I tell him we're going to watch it now, so he could get off the phone and we could watch what I just spent $20 on. Just for him to tell me he hadn't seen it yet. I was like, really, dog? Fortunately, it was a really cool and informative documentary about things people should be way more concerned with, or at the very least just talking about more, because the fact that more people aren't talking about UAPs and UFOs and government cover-ups regarding such things is, it's definitely alarming. And, look, is it something I'm going to watch again anytime soon? No. But is it something I'm going to recommend everyone check out at least once to not only be mind blown, but to stay in the know about even more shady things that the government does behind our backs? You bet your butt. It's a really cool documentary, and if you like stuff like that, it's only an hour and a half or an hour and some change. Check it out. It's on Amazon Prime. Hopefully you don't have to spend $20 like I did. Just missing the top 15 is Havoc. Man, Tom Hardy, Gareth Evans, raid-style action. I mean, you put it all together, and what do you get? Havoc. You get Havoc. Now, Havoc falls short in originality, as the plot is fairly straightforward and honestly borderline predictable, but it more than makes up for it with some bloody, visceral action. With a car chase scene, like literally 45 minutes in, that's just bonkers. Speaking of that 45 minutes, though, it does take longer than preferred to get going because it spends that whole first chunk dedicated to setting up all of the pieces going on. But the rest of the runtime really goes full throttle with little room to breathe for anything else but crazy kills, and Tom Hardy being the coolest protagonist this side of Arama from The Raid. If you haven't seen The Raid, I'd suggest you go watch that instead. I really do wish I loved it more than I did, but when there's better movies with better plots that are made by the same person and do basically the same things, but better, kind of draws the short stick in comparison. Sorry. But at number 15, I got Jurassic World Rebirth. While fairly enjoyable and a welcome return to form in its own right, after some time to mull it over, Rebirth really does play like a run of the mill Jurassic flick instead of something unique or dramatically different in the franchise. There's nothing like inherently special about this film besides the cast, which includes Scarlett Johansson and Mahershala Ali, whose chemistry would have been nice to see in the MCU as Black Widow and Blade, respectively, but obviously that's most likely never going to happen. Admittedly, there is some cool dino action with one T-Rex chase scene in particular keeping me at the edge of my seat, but a lot of the deaths were predictable, with the survivors even more so. Now, that's not to say my mom and I didn't have a good time watching it in the theaters, but it's one of those flicks that I could have waited to see on streaming and I wouldn't have been missing much. I'm still excited to see the sequel, and judging from its box office numbers, we're probably going to get that sooner than later. I think it did like $800 plus million, so the sequel's bound to happen. To my surprise, I got Death of a Unicorn next. A24 has been on a strangely endearing streak the past few years, and Death of a Unicorn is furthermore a testament to that. Sure, Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega hard carry the film's emotional and often more hilarious parts, but it's also the supporting cast that do some heavy lifting in their own right, with someone like Will Poulter doing unicorn cocaine of all things. It's wild. The film also explores the quote-unquote secrets of the universe and really drive home an already outlandish concept as being utterly insane, but just so dang entertaining. The reason it's a little lower though is because, it's cool for a one and done experience and it's sure as heck recommendable. It's just not something I feel like I'm going to watch again for a long while, at least not as much as the ones above it on this list. Next up, I got The Running Man. Glenn Powell has been making waves ever since playing Hangman in Top Gun Maverick, but his real test as a leading movie star was certainly this year's The Running Man, directed by the stylistically unique Edgar Wright. Thing is, this movie was surprisingly tame for, an Edgar Wright film and lacked much of his signature style throughout, with maybe a handful of scenes really showcasing what usually makes his films stand out. Still, the movie does have a breezy pace with some dope action carrying the runtime as Wright explores subject matter regarding class warfare and AI of all things. Some humor in the film was a little unnecessary and a tad overdone, but I'm not here to dog on it. It was perfectly watchable and perfectly entertaining, just not as good as I expected a remake of the original 1987 film to be, no matter how much more faithful to the source material this one was. At number 12, I got Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Now, the Mission Impossible franchise is one of the most consistent ones out there, with even its quote-unquote worst films still being entertaining pieces of cinema that are far better than a lot of the slop that's out there. Now, the eighth and final film, well, if this is even really the final one, showcases the ultimate duo of Chris McQuarrie and Tom Cruise's innate desire to potentially kill the latter on film with death-defying stunts and action that proves why the now 63-year-old actor is one of the last real movie stars living. The action is fantastic, no matter how sparse it is, and it acts as an excellent, albeit safe, send-off to the franchise. If I'm being honest, however, the numerous flashbacks throughout the film that called back to better movies in the franchise were quite distracting, and I felt like I had more questions regarding the Key and Gabriel and Ethan's origins before he even got into the IMF that I feel only served to hinder one of the best movie characters from having any real closure. Forgive me, Lord, but just missing the top 10 is The King of Kings. The animated hit from the originally crowd-funded Angel Studios proved that Christian content is here to stay and becoming more popular than ever, glory be to God, with the movie itself doubling as the perfect way to introduce kids to Jesus in a simple yet profound way. The film stars Oscar Isaac as Jesus Christ himself, with an authoritative yet kind and gentle demeanor as every word he says holds the utmost weight, as it should. Joining the Moon Knight actor are the likes of Kenneth Branagh, Pierce Brosnan, Ben Kingsley, and a slew of big talent to portray the characters surrounding Jesus during some of his biggest stories during his time among mankind. Every story was elegantly portrayed with beautiful imagery and cinematography that felt like he was breaking the fourth wall more often than not, bringing you personally into each scene as they flowed from lighthearted and tranquil to dark and chaotic. It surprisingly doesn't shy away from certain aspects of Jesus' story that you would expect an animated film to, but it's also not Passion of the Christ levels of graphic, again making it easier for parents who want to introduce their children to the faith. Without saying that there wasn't a dry eye in the theater. But what really got me was when my fiance had this thought, or a conviction, so to speak. We cheer and clap when a superhero movie wraps up, right? But why don't we do that for the only superhero who actually ever existed? Just food for thought. Beautiful movie. I would definitely recommend checking it out, even if to introduce yourself to Jesus, the one and only. But bringing in my top 10 is Weapons. Now, there's a moment in the movie where Josh Brolin's character awakens from a nightmare and screams, "What the F?" And that's exactly how I felt through most of this movie. Ultra creepy and edge of your seat thrilling, Weapons is the second venture from Zach Cregger where I genuinely had no idea what I was watching, but loved every second of it. The mystery, the humor, the jump scares, the plot twists, all of it made me hooked from the very beginning, with an ending that made me squirm in my seat. I'm all for original horror films like this, and I hope they continue to make more because, frankly, I love recommending WTF type movies to people, so when they see it, they can either hate me for recommending such a weird and out of pocket film or ask me for more. Next up, Predator, Killer of Killers. Now, although I had Killer of Killers ranked on the lower side among the Predator franchise films, that's not to say I didn't like it a lot. The unique animation style, combined with some bloody kills and numerous samurai slash Viking slash military battles, made Killer of Killers this anthology film that fans have been waiting to see since 2010's Predators. It expands the lore and showcases what the franchise is capable of by way of connecting the world in ways I never could have seen coming, and it's all thanks to the man behind Predator Badlands, Dan Trachtenberg. Not that I need another animated affair from the director, but I do certainly hope that the ending teases from the film regarding Dutch and Harrigan from the first two movies actually come to fruition in live action via an Avengers-style team-up or battle royale. Yeah, everything's got to be a part of a shared universe now, doesn't it? But, I'm not mad about it. Next up is Ballerina. Honestly, the John Wick series doesn't need any additional entries in the franchise aside from the mainline movies. However, I'm so freaking glad that we got one anyway, apparently with more to come too. Ana de Armas is a force as Eve, aka the titular ballerina, joined by a cast of characters that serve to expand the lore, including Keanu Reeves' return as the Baba Yaga himself. The action is insane and includes some of the best fight scenes of the 5 movies so far, with the grenade and flamethrower fights being major highlights and mind-blowing feats in film. With Donnie Yen's Kane getting a spinoff and a possible 5th mainline John Wick movie coming, I hope Eve doesn't get lost in the mix because I for one would like to see an Avenger-style John Wick universe movie in the near future with new and old characters all teaming up or even going at each other for some bloody carnage. Who wouldn't? Don't even come at me for this one, dog, because I got Nona's at number 7. Who knew Vince Vaughn could make me cry happy tears? Who knew? My fiance and I saw this movie on a whim during a night out in Raleigh. She fell asleep 10 minutes in. It was late. But I stood up to watch the whole thing as I was instantly hooked within those first 10 minutes. While a simple feel-good story about legacy and good food, the sincerity behind every performance and genuine balance of drama and comedy really made Nona stand out from other movies like it to me. With an ending that put a giant smile on my face, I knew exactly what I had to add on my list of things to do before I die. Visit Enoteca Maria and try the infamous Capuzel, which just so happens to be the stuffed lamb's head. I'll try any food once. I don't care. That's how good this movie made it look. But just missing the top 5 is Sinners. Ryan Coogler's follow-up to the Black Panther and Creed franchises came in a bloody, historically resonating, and musically endearing package. Sinners is a movie that not only boasts tremendous talent, but a premise that any cinephile could get behind as it forces the viewer to reflect on the human condition that so many have succumbed to throughout time, to cruel circumstances, harsh situations, and the usurping of cultures that has plagued America's foundation for ages. The cast here is also stacked, no pun intended, with Michael B. Jordan leading the ensemble as twins Smoke and Stack. 2 sides of the same coin that proves the actor to be a powerhouse of talent, with Jack O'Connell's Remick playing a perfectly casted antagonist in the Geist of the Devil, essentially, who is the source of the carnage that ensues for the back half of the film. Now, I didn't get to catch this one in theaters, but Man, do I wish I had, because Sinners is not only one of the best films created by the dynamic duo that is Coogler and Jordan, but just one of the best films to come out in the past decade or so that simply never leaves the mind. Plus, that after credits scene, that's how you do an after credits scene. And this movie, you wouldn't even think, it's not even like a superhero movie or anything, but it got one. So go watch it. If you haven't watched it yet, check it out. But bringing in the top 5 is Predator Badlands. The Predator franchise's big screen return since 2018 could very well be Dan Trachtenberg's magnum opus and the best of the franchise yet. Even though I'm a Predator 1 fan, I love Predator 1, this thing was awesome. New Zealand actor Demetrius Schuster Kolomatangi's Dec is our Yautja Runt protagonist in this underdog story about honor and revenge, and turning a merciless killer into some empathetic action hero was surely a bold move by Dan Trachtenberg, but one that paid off in spades. Now, there are no actual humans in the movie, preventing the PG-13 rating from hindering the graphicness, as it's still ferociously violent throughout, but perhaps the most surprising aspect of the film is just how heartfelt it can be, with Elle Fanning's Thea and Dec's chemistry becoming emotionally resonant as they both go on their character journeys with a little alien beast named Bud that they take in and form a familial bond with. With Badlands feeling like something straight out of a Predator comic book, Trachtenberg is officially 3 for 3 in the franchise, and I can't wait for whatever other uncharted territory the acclaimed director is keen on exploring in this universe. At number 4, quite appropriately so, is the Fantastic Four: First Steps. I think what worked in First Steps' favor was the fact that we had already seen how Galactus and Silver Surfer could be done with improper direction, so there was nowhere to go but up. Director Matt Shakman certainly upgraded the material by finally giving us a terrifyingly comic-accurate Galactus, along with an emotionally compelling arc regarding Julia Garner's Silver Surfer. With some of the best special effects in a comic book movie and a cast that may, to some, pale in comparison to the Tim Story movies, even though the 2025 versions are far more comic accurate than we've ever seen on screen, First Steps contained a heartfelt familial connection that actually made me cry each time I saw the film. You know the part. Curious to see how the new F4 interacts with the MCU characters we know and love, and just how connected they are to the Doctor Doom we'll see in Doomsday, but until then, I'm happy we finally got a Fantastic Four film done right. Right. I think it's hilarious where I put this guy on my head. But at number 3, I got The Naked Gun. I think the last time I laughed this hard in the theater was during Deadpool and Wolverine, and this isn't even a superhero movie, and I love it probably just as much. Maybe. I gotta reevaluate that. No legacy sequel had the right to be this funny or entertaining, and yet Liam Neeson, aka the perfect successor to Leslie Nielsen, and Lonely Island alum Hot Rod director Akiva Schaffer kicked it out of the friggin' park. There's jokes a mile a minute, even if 5% of them don't really land, and more puns than you can possibly stomach, with random celebrity cameos elevating an already welcomed return to spoof comedy. Now, this is cameos done right. Not like Happy Gilmore 2, where it was literally just every scene was disjointed and had a cameo. This is just like, oh, look, it's that guy. Like, it was funnier, okay? It was funnier. But if that wasn't enough, the end credits gags, coupled with the franchise's synonymous theme and Pamela Anderson's hilarious reaction to the fourth wall breaking, are things I'll never forget for a long time to come. They might as well fast track a sequel yesterday. I need one. I need one. But our runner-up for the top spot is going to be Thunderbolts. Dude, I'm insanely shocked that a movie about a group of C-list characters I couldn't have cared less about in the MCU being in my top 2 of 2025 wasn't on my bingo card this year. But alas, here we are. Not only was Thunderbolts heartwarming and action-packed, but it was actually about something, with its themes of depression and loss really resonating with me on an emotional level that I haven't felt since Spider-Man No Way Home. It definitely helps that Lewis Pullman's debut in the franchise as the Superman-like sentry was one for the books, providing not only a genuinely terrifying villain in The Void, but also one of the coolest one-shot fight scenes this side of Netflix's Daredevil. I said what I said. Sure, the new Avengers title reveal at the end of the film, along with the after-credit scenes teasing the Fantastic Four's arrival in Avengers Doomsday, had officially etched into my brain. But once the credits really were over, there was no doubt in my mind that the MCU had just dropped one of its best films of all time. But if you know me, it should come as no surprise that the number 1 movie of 2025 for me is Superman. James Gunn's first big screen endeavor in the newly created DC universe was surely one for the books, with a fantastic cast, engaging visuals, and a comic booky world that makes the DCU going forward that much more anticipated on a grand scale of rich world building. David Corenswet's Clark Kent slash Superman is not only perfectly casted, but brings a charm and wit to the role we haven't seen the likes of since Christopher Reeves donned the red and blue tights in the 70s and 80s. As I mentioned before, this is one of the most comic booky movies I've ever seen, complete with giant kaijus, alien babies, superhuman canines, and rage-baiting monkeys. And somehow it all works. Though I couldn't give the movie a quote-unquote perfect score due to it missing the edge of Man of Steel, it at least replaces the epicness with heart, which is something I'll never not be happy to see in a Superman movie. But that's it, guys. If you enjoyed this video, remember to hit that like button and get in my comments with your thoughts on my list, as well as your favorite and least favorite movies of 2025. But until next time, take care, God bless, and Happy New Year.